Hi everyone, this is JP. I want to talk about Lucifer's final plan for this short season that we are in. What is his final move? We're going to talk about that today. Let's listen to what the presidents of America had to say about it. The thing is, Lucifer's been preparing for the return of Yahushua, his final return, not the second coming, his final return. And the way Yahushua is going to return, we haven't seen before. It is not the same as his second coming. The way he's going to return is different. Lucifer knows that, and he's been preparing for it now for a few hundred years. But how is he preparing the nations? How is he preparing us, the people? I'll show and talk about it a bit later, more. And first wanted to show you what these presidents had to say, because they were also part of the preparation of brainwashing the people into believing certain things. So let's have a listen. This is 1987.
In our obsession with antagonisms of the moment, we often forget how much unites all the members of humanity. Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think...
Just want to mention, see behind him, he's talking about aliens and stuff, but behind him is the flat earth map, right up here, which is actually funny.
How quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us? What could be more alien to the universal aspirations of our peoples than war and the threat of war?
Interesting, eh? They already were sowing long ago, this is in the 80s, the idea of aliens, of other planets, aliens, a spinning ball, heliocentrism. If you believe these things, you're already deceived. You're already deceived. Because that's part of the final deception, is that you believe in heliocentric Earth, spinning around the sun, of planets and aliens and all that kind of stuff. And now you hear this president reiterating this idea that there is aliens. Of course, that's part of the deception.
When you stop to think that we're all God's children, wherever we may live in the world, I couldn't help but say to him, just think how easy his task and mine might be in these meetings that we held if suddenly there was a threat to this world from some other species, from another planet, outside in the universe. We'd forget all the little local differences that we have between our countries, and we would find out once and for all that we really are all human beings here on this earth together. Well, I don't suppose we can wait for some alien race to come down and threaten us, but I think that between us, we can bring about that realization. In my frustration sometimes, you know, actually, if you count some of the things going on in smaller countries and all, there have been about 114 wars since World War II. But I've often wondered, what if all of us in the world discovered that we were threatened by a power from outer space, from another planet? Wouldn't we all of a sudden find that we didn't have any differences between us at all? We were all human beings, citizens of the world, and wouldn't we come together to fight that particular threat?
Yes, so as you can see, many times they use these leaders, which are all worshipping and serving Lucifer, to tell the people about aliens and possible coming of aliens. They're preparing the minds of the people by saying, but if an alien threat comes, then we will be united. Which is exactly what we read in the 2 Esdras 13. I'll read it to you later, but exactly the same thing will play out as this president just said right now. I wanted you to listen. And before we listen to the next person, let's see, I'll just give a shout out to Book of Life 144 for this good video he placed. on the final battle. Like he said here, for the invasion to work, there needs to be two things that we need to believe. What's the two things? That they live on a spinning ball in an endlessly expanding universe. Heliocentrism. If you must believe in it for Lucifer's plan to work in your life, and that the second advent of Yahushua hasn't taken place yet. That's the second thing. You must believe we are still waiting for a tribulation, second coming, all that futurism nonsense. Although the Bible the Bible told us already that Yahushua came around 70 CE. He returned. He will come in his disciples' generation, and he did. So this is part of the deceptions, the things that you need to believe. So let's listen to the next person. Here is Werner von Braun. He was taken from Germany to America after the Second World War. A scientist, he helped them build rockets. He was also part of the NASA and of the deception. And he talked to Carol Rosen, and now you'll hear what she had to say about what Werner von Braun said before his death.
That he said to me over and over again during the approximately 4 years that I had the opportunity of working with him, and that was the strategy that was being used to educate the public and decision makers, and the scare tactics, the spin that was being put on a weapons system. And that was how we identify an enemy. The strategy that Werner von Braun taught me was that first the Russians are going to be considered to be the enemy. In fact, when I met him in '74, they were the enemy, the identified enemy. We were told that they had killer satellites. We were told that they were coming to get us and control us, the dirty commies, that whole story. First, the Russians were the enemy against whom we're going to build space-based weapons. Then terrorists would be identified, and that was soon to follow. We heard a lot about terrorism. Then we were going to identify third world country crazies. We now call them nations of concern. But he said that would be the third enemy against whom we would be needing to build space-based weapons. And the next enemy was asteroids. Now at this point, he kind of chuckled the first time he said it.
So why do you think he chuckled? Because he knows that we are under a dome. There is no planets or meteorites or anything that can hit us. That's why he's laughing when he said it. But all these excuses, they need it. Lucifer let them make up these excuses to make space-based weapons, to make special weapons for a specific reason. And it's not to do with nations or peoples. It has to do with Yahushua's return, his final return. They are building these weapons to fight Yahushua when he returns. Remember when Yahushua returns next that Lucifer will be thrown in hell. So he's going to fight tooth and nail not to go to hell. He's going to give it everything he's got. They're building their UFOs and their weapons and everything now to fight this threat of Yahushua's return. And I will read to you in 2 Esdras this exact scenario and how it plays out.
Asteroids. Against asteroids, we're going to build space-based weapons. So it was funny then. And the funniest one of all was against what he called aliens, extraterrestrials. That would be the final card. And over and over and over, during the 4 years that I knew him and was giving his speeches for him, he would bring up that last card. And remember, Carol, the last card is the alien card. We're going to have to build space-based weapons against aliens. And all of it, he said, is a lie.
Yes, all it is a lie. The alien Lucifer is referring to is Yahushua's return. It is Yahushua himself and his saints. That's the aliens they are building these weapons to fight against. But he's not going to tell you that. And it's just funny on the capstone on the stone of von Braun's burial site. They put Psalm 19 verse 1, which says that the firmament shows Yahuwah's glory. So it's funny that they put that verse on his stone, gravestone, that there is a firmament above us, a dome, a solid dome. So the next one I wanted to share, this is Trump. People, what you don't know is all these people are actors. They're actors in this short season, all working for Lucifer. They know what the end game is. They know what their jobs are, what they need to do. They must look like there's disagreements, but actually behind the scenes they're big buddies. These different countries and presidents. It's all acting. It's all deception. Listen what Trump has to say.
And providing the space security, we need to protect the American people, and security is going to be a very big factor with respect to space and space exploration. At some point in the future, we're going to look back and say, how did we do it without space? At some point in the future, we're going to look back and say, how did we do it without space? The Vice President will serve as the Council's chair.
Yes, this is what Trump actually says. We couldn't fake space missions without first faking space. Exactly. They first had to get you to believe in space, in planets, in aliens, in the spinning ball, all this nonsense. They first had to get you to believe it, and then they can use it to bolster this idea that they need space-based weapons. They need to build a space army and all this other stuff. They laid the foundations already. The foundation is a spinning ball. And this is the sign, the Space Force. And you can see Baphomet. If you turn it cap around, it's Baphomet. Interesting, right? I just wanted to show you this playing cards. You all heard about these Mason playing cards predicting the future, and they have a card there of alien invasion. Church of Middle America appears to point to a future alien deception that could hoodwink the end-time church. And yes, it says here on the card, they'll never get it, even when the saucers are flying overhead. And it is true. People won't know that there isn't a way that these sources, these UFOs, are coming from other planets. People will actually believe that these things come from other planets, that it's not the governments that made them, that it's not Lucifer's governments that built these UFOs to fight Yahushua. They will be deceived because they believed the lies. They didn't want to believe what the Bible says about the earth, that it is under a dome, it is a flat earth, it is, yes, the sun and the moon is rotating above us. There is no way that there can be aliens coming from other planets. That's all a lie. If you believe the Bible, then you won't be deceived with this. But they will use these UFOs against their own people, and I'll explain this a bit more later. Let's go now. I've done this video. Let's go through a few verses. Let's go to Esdras first. I want to show you what's happening when Yahushua returns the last time. 2 Esdras 13, verse 6. I watched, and as he carved a great mountain for himself and flew onto it. This is Ezra talking about Yahushua. He saw him basically build a UFO. He saw Yahushua build a UFO, or a flying city, a floating city, and he saw him flying on top of it. He flew around on top of this flying saucer city, whatever you want to call it. And this is the way he's going to return the last time. His return is going to look like a mothership coming down like Independence Day. And how has Satan deceived or brainwashed the people up to now? All these movies of these alien motherships coming down and destroying the earth, blowing up cities. Satan's been preparing you to believe that when Yahushua returns on his mothership, on his floating city, then you're going to think it's a mothership, and then Lucifer is going to release his little UFOs to attack the people, and the people will think, oh, this is coming from that mothership, but that mothership is actually Yahushua's floating city. He has nothing to do with the UFOs attacking the people. And then, of course, they'll probably use that as an excuse to tell the people that they need to prepare, and a fake aliens looking like heavenly beings, they will probably also come then and tell them that they can help them prepare to attack or to defend themselves and even attack the mothership. And they will say they've got ways to improve the people, like making them hybrids and in different ways, making them faster, stronger. And that is where the movies comes in, people. That is where these Avengers movies come in. The hybrids fighting the motherships coming through space portals. And that's what Avengers was about. Don't you remember? And who was the heroes? The heroes were those hybrids on Earth, like the Captain America and like Hulk and Winter Soldier and Thor and so on. So it's fallen angels like Thor fighting together with hybrids against these motherships coming down, and always these motherships are the evil ones. But we know in the future it's actually going to be Yahushua's return on his UFO, on his floating city, his mothership, and people will be willing to become hybrids like Captain America, receiving injections and stuff that improves their abilities, because their heroes did it. Of course, they also want to do it. Then they don't worry about the side effects of what will be done to them. And we see in verse 31, they will plan to wage war against each other, the city against city, place against place, nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom. Referring to First World War, people, this is different countries fighting each other. When these things happen and the signs that I showed you before takes place, then my son will be revealed, whom you saw as a man rising up. How will he be revealed? Let's see. When all the nations hear his voice, then each one will leave his own region and will leave off the wars they were waging against each other. Remember what the president said, if only an alien invasion happens, the nations will stand together as one. This is what's happening here. People will hear that Yahushua is coming, or they will see his mothership. You will hear later it mentions it. An innumerable mob will be gathered together as you saw, wanting to come and fight against him. But he will take his stand on the summit of Mount Zion. This Mount Zion is this floating city, or the UFO is called Mount Zion. Zion will come and will appear to all. This mothership will appear in the skies to everybody. They will all see it. They will want to fight it. Why would they want to fight it? Because they've seen the movies. They've seen these motherships coming down attacking the people. Zion will come and will appear to all, built and ready, as you saw a mountain carved without hands. Remember, this mountain carved without hands is the floating city that's talked about in verse 6. Was as he carved a great mountain for himself and flew upon it. That's the mountain carved without hands. Verse 48, he will destroy them without effort by the law, which was indicated by fire. So he's going to barbecue them. He's going to burn them up. This is also what we read in Ezekiel 38, to Gog of Magog battle, because these two things goes together. This alien attack, Yahushua's mothership, Lucifer wanting to fight Yahushua, and also Russia and his allies surrounding the camp of the believers who gathered with the second Exodus in South Africa. They want to attack them too, and Yahushua's floating city will be there above the area where the Israelites gathered. And that's where the final battle is going to play out. And we read there that he's going to burn them up with fire, just as it says here in 2 Esdras 13. So it's the same event. It's an event of fighting on the ground, but also fighting in the air. It's going to be a huge thing. It's going to be like the Avengers Endgame. It's going to be like that. Verse 39, as to the fact that you saw him collecting to himself another peaceable multitude. Here it talks about the second Exodus, Israelites being gathered together, the remnant in South Africa. It's been prophesied by South African prophets too, 100 years ago. But it's going to happen, and the Bible also mentions it a few times. And let's go to a few verses, because I want to show you on old Millennial Kingdom medallions. I want to show you proof that Yahushua has a floating city, because it is in the old medallions of the Millennial Kingdom. Shows the floating city. It's amazing. We missed it. We didn't know that it is what it's representing, but you will see what I mean. So during the Millennial Kingdom, Yahushua was here living on a floating city. Maybe it's the New Jerusalem, because that's also a floating city mentioned in Revelation 21. Or maybe it's a different floating city. Who knows? I think it is actually the New Jerusalem, because remember, the earthly Jerusalem is built on Mount Zion. And here we read about Zion, the floating city. So it is the New Jerusalem on the floating Mount Zion. Amazing. I think it's what you see on earth is a reflection of what is in heaven. Isn't that true? The Bible says it. So let's go through a few verses first. We see here with the New Jerusalem. One of the, let's see here. He carried me away in the spirit to a great and high mountain, and showed me the great city, the holy Jerusalem, descending out of heaven from Yahweh. We can see it's also a floating city, like we read into Esdras, that Yeshua could fly on this floating city. I believe this is exactly the same thing. Then it says, having the glory of Yahuwah, her light was like a most precious stone, like a jasper. Jasper is orange-red color. And then it just explains what it looks like. It gives the dimensions of it. I think it's something like 1,600 kilometers squared base, but I think it's in the shape of a pyramid. It can have one of two shapes, either a cube or a pyramid shape. The base is a square, and then but it can go up to a point like a pyramid, and I think that's actually what it looks like, the shape of it. And then it's talking about, let's see, yeah. But I saw no temple in it, for Yahuwah Elohim Almighty and the Lamb are its temple. The city has no need of the sun or the moon to shine in it, for the glory of Yahuwah illuminates it. The lamp is its light. You see here, Yahushua is the light that shines out of the city. Remember this statement, because on the coins you will see this too. So we see that the city, floating city, shines like the sun. It doesn't need a sun or a moon light. It has its own light. It's got its own light source. So it's like a sun in the sky. And the nations of those who are saved shall walk in its light. We see here that the people, as it shines down on the earth, and the people walk in the light of this city. Amazing, eh? I'll show you on the coins exactly this. Now let's go to Isaiah 60 verse 19. The sun shall no longer be your light by day, nor the brightness shall be the moon given light to you, but Yahweh will be to you an everlasting light, and your Elohim your glory. Your sun shall no longer go down, nor shall your moon withdraw itself, for Yahweh will be your everlasting light, and the days of your mourning shall be ended. This days of mourning ended refers to the Israel remnant being gathered in Canaan. Canaan, which is in Africa. It's not in Southwest Asia. They're lying to you. It's not in Palestine. It's on the equator in Africa. And then, let's see the last verse. Moreover, the light of the moon shall be as the light of the sun, and the light of the sun shall be sevenfold, and the light of 7 days. In that days that Yahweh bindeth up the breach of his people, and heal the stroke of their wound. And we just see that it will be very bright right at the end. But this refers to, of course, after Yahushua's final return, but we see here that it is brighter when Yahushua's floating city is in the sky. It makes it brighter all around, because remember, this is a square that has sides at a length of 1,600 kilometers. That's huge. It's like the size of a continent. I've measured that before. Let's just show you on maps here what the size of it is. Because I measured it in Africa. And it was basically from here about to there. That's that width, that floating city. It's huge. It's bigger than Congo. Here, this area is Congo. It's about the size of a bit bigger than Congo. So it's a very big city. Now Lucifer would want to attack it, but we know he's going to fail anyway, because the Bible tells us this, and 2 Esdras tells us this. But this is his final plan, to gather the people to fight this floating city. They must believe it is aliens invading Earth, and he will make sure that people are deceived and believe this, and they will become hybrids and want to go and fight like the Avengers movie. Go fight this mothership, but they're going to fail. All of them is going to fail. Let's look at this pictures. This resembles more or less what it might look like, Yahushua's floating city. It's more in like in a pyramid shape like this. And then I think it's similar to this city here in the corner. This pyramid shape, Yahushua at the top, is the capstone. You will also see it on the coins, on the medallions. This is also a good picture down here, looking like a mountain, but it's actually a floating city in the shape of a pyramid. And I can imagine it's looking something like this. Yeah. And then let's quickly look at the coins. Here, this is a Millennial Kingdom coin. There's the sun, but here is another sun. You see, it's the floating city. On it's the name Yahuwah, because it represents Mount Zion, on which Yahushua was floating around above the earth during the Millennial Kingdom. His saints, glorified ones, can move between the floating city and earth and minister to the people as they did. The saints like Paul and Peter and Moses and Abraham. So they minister to the people, and they can go to the city and come back and forth. And this is a good representation, the Alita Battle Angel movie. This is a picture of it. And this floating city is called Salem or Zalem, like Jerusalem. It's interesting that they use the same name as the Bible for the floating city, Jerusalem. They just use the last part of the name, Zalem, because they know what's going to happen. Lucifer knows what's on the cards. He knows what's going to happen. But he's laughing at you because you are clueless. The people are clueless. They don't know what's the plan. They don't even know where they are on the timeline. So how are you going to know what's going to happen if you think there's still going to be a great tribulation or a second coming? You're like 1,000-something years behind. You're like 1,200, 1,500 years behind the times. You need to catch up. We are in the little season now. We are right at the end of the little season. We are right before the second Exodus and the final battle of Gog of Magog, which is when Lucifer is also going to attack Yahushua's floating city. That's where we are now, right at the end of the Bible. Revelation 20, 21, 22. Another picture of that floating city. This is Gulliver's Travels. It's written in 1726. And I believe this is a reference to the actual floating city that was here during the Millennial Kingdom. Then there's a verse that I mentioned, but I beheld, and lo, he had graved himself a great mountain, and flew up upon it. This is the mothership floating city that Yahushua is on. There's so many movies about floating cities and islands. Here's a list of, if you want to go through them, of the movies on this, and even television series. And as you can see here, I just want to show you here, as you can see, this doesn't line up. It looks like the M's been added afterwards, and it is. That represents 1,000. They added 1,000 years on this coin. This is how it's supposed to look like. You see there? That's more accurate. Anyways, you can see here Yahuwah name. It looks like a sun shining like the sun. It's covered with clouds. It's amazing, right? This is the floating city hovering over this city. Maybe Yahushua visiting the city and seeing what they've done, how they improved the city, and so forth. He flew from city to city during the Millennial Kingdom on his floating city and visiting different peoples. And when I saw this cloud, I saw a picture, and I don't have it now. Let's see if I can find it. Mothership clouds. I saw a nice picture that looked like a mothership. Yeah, none of these I was referring to, although some of them do look like. I think I found it on an Independence Day. Here we go. This. I think it looked something like this, and this is what they try to represent on these coins. You see this image? They're not going to allow me to view it. Anyways, it looks like that. They used this more or less the same thing in the Independence Day. Menacing clouds shaped like alien craft. You see this, I think it's actually real, this one. And I think this is what it looked like when Yahushua's floating city was moving around. It looked like a cloud in the shape of a mothership. You see this? Now when people see this, exactly like an Independence Day movie, they will make the connection. Oh, that's a mothership. We must fight it. And we read in 2 Ezra 13 that they will leave their battles and fighting each other, and they will become like one nation, the New World Order, one nation, gathered together to fight this alien ship, this threat coming from the skies, from another planet. Fake planets. Amazing, eh? It's all in the sun, I see. This sadly. Oh, here's one. Well, it's not very large, is it? There's a nice picture there. Nice, right? And now that, and you look at this. You see, it's the same. Yahushua's floating city, we have clouds underneath, so it looks like clouds, but the light shining through it, almost like that picture I showed you, but much more light, as you can see, is shining through the clouds. It's like another sun. Amazing. So it's on the coins of the millennial kingdom. This date is during the millennial kingdom, people. It's not 1,000 whatever. It is just like 658 or something like that. And I believe with the millennial kingdom, they started counting year 1 to 1,000. And that's what you have on these coins. It's where during the 1,000-year reign you are. See the next one. The Bible calls Yahushua the cornerstone, but with a pyramid shape. The cornerstone is the top stone of the pyramid, the capstone, and the eye there. So Yahushua can see all things, and it shines like a sun, as you can see, with the clouds around it. It's floating in the sky, and they represented Yahushua's floating city in the shape of a pyramid, which it probably is. It actually physically looks like a pyramid. So this is an accurate representation of his floating city, of the New Jerusalem. This is the shape of the New Jerusalem, I believe, a pyramid shape. It gives you the dimensions in the Bible, and that dimensions can be that of a pyramid. Remember? Now also the Masons, they take what Yahuwah gives and they make it evil, and of course they also use this image on their stuff. So they take what was shown as Yahushua's floating city, New Jerusalem, and they use it on their coins, on their money today, and in their temples. Well, as you can see, Yahushua is here visiting this city, and he's on his floating city, his mothership. See again the date there, they added a M and a dot, but it's actually that date. Again here you can see the clouds and the sun light shining through it, and Jehovah. This is a representation of the floating city. Again, the floating city here shines like a sun. The sun. Another nice coin here over this city, and it's interesting. It's a lot of times when they make these medallions and coins, it is hovering over a city, and that's why I say I believe Yahushua was visiting cities, city to city, on his floating city, looking at what they accomplished for him during the millennial kingdom. Amazing. This is Yahuwah's name here, Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh. It's shining like the sun, as we read in scripture. It will shine like the sun, and it's got clouds here, like that picture I showed you earlier. Remember this picture there? It looks like that, floating through the sky. Amazing, amazing. So again here, you see the floating city and the hand of Yahushua, showing that he is right above the earth on his floating city, because you see his hand there holding grapes. What is this? This is pressing the grapes. What does that represent? Let me show you. It's a wine press. In the Bible, the wine press is a symbol of judgment and wrath, often used to describe Yahweh's judgment of the lawless. The imagery of the winepress emphasizes the inevitability and thoroughness of Yahweh's judgment. Yes, and this is also, remember the Bible says, during the millennial kingdom, Yahushua reigned with a rod of iron. He punished the lawless. This is what it represents. He was righteous and just, and the civilization was just in the days that he was ruling. And he crushed the nations that stood up to him, who were rebellious. He crushed them like grapes. Then you have this coin. Here again you can see where this floating city is. You can see the hands of Yahushua, or Yahushua and Yahuwah, but you can see an agreement, and with this heavenly hands showing through the clouds by this city, I believe representing Yahushua. This is Gdansk. If you look at this, the previous Gdanensis is a place called Gdansk in Poland. So this medallion, this city was in Gdansk in Poland. I think it's destroyed now. Again, you see the floating city here, Yahuwah on it, written on it, because it is the Mount Zion. It's New Jerusalem. It's shining like the sun. It's got cloud cover. It's got the hand of Yahushua here with a sword. He's the righteous ruler and avenger of and destroying those who are sinning against him, who are living lawless. Also, this branch represents Israel, the olive. And there's the scale. He's a just ruler. So this is all about Yahushua being a ruler, ruling with a rod of iron, destroying the nations who are rebellious, and his nation is Israel. Amazing. This is millennial kingdom coins, people. This is proof that there was a millennial kingdom already. Again, we see here Yahuwah, the floating city, the sun shining like the sun. And then again here you see Yahuwah, and it shines like the sun above this city. With these altcoins, usually you see I or a J, 698. Again, you see this floating city with cloud cover. It's shining like the sun. Again, on this coin you see the same thing here. There you see the Yahushua's floating city being there in the present, and there's angels represented, and throwing down food and stuff, which shows that it was fruitful period, the millennial kingdom. Now the lion represents Judah. Beautiful coin this. I would love to have this coin. You can see Yahuwah here who is floating, might be the floating city, but this for me shows that Yahuwah was ruling over all the nations. These shields represent all the nations, and he was holding them together. He was ruling over all of them. They are blowing the trumpets. This is Nero sitting on the rubble of Rome, being destroyed, just before the millennial kingdom, of course, playing his harp. Nero was known for playing the harp, and that's who this is. You can see he's got his Roman clothes on. Amazing, right? This woman, she's holding the olive branch, which is Israel. The lions you have there, which is Judah. This lion holding 3 tribes. This lion holding 3 tribes. Amazing, amazing, amazing. I think on the shield it says all are equal. During the millennial kingdom, all were equal. Beautiful. This is all showing the millennial kingdom, people. Again, the King of Kings, Yahushua, he's the name of the floating city, shining like the sun. Again, there's women looking up at the floating city of Yahushua, shining like the sun. And on this one, you see Yahushua, his arms with the olive branch, of course, Israel, the flag, which might be Judah, the arrows. And it shows that he fights, his people fights and destroys the rebellious nations. And this is what this woman also represents. We have the Israel branch there, and this, which sheaf of wheat, I think, which might represent Joseph or Ephraim. And God het ons bewaar, which means Yahuwah protected us. And you can see they conquered, the Israel here conquered this nation that was rebellious. Again, Yahushua out of the cloud of his floating city, he holds these 3 tribes. It might be Simeon, Reuben, I think, and Judah. There you have again this floating city that's shining like the sun, his name there. All these, there's again, they represent the floating city, people, shining like the sun, as the Bible says. There's so many of them. Here I think this represents Yahushua sitting on his throne on earth with an iron scepter. Here it is Yahushua not allowing other religions to be preached during his millennial kingdom. You can see all these false preachers being thrown down to earth, being judged. And you can see Bacchus here, the fish god. Here there is a wizard, and different religions, and even people using scientism, maybe, this, that. I don't know what that represents. Anyway, different religious views that's not allowed during his millennial kingdom. And this one, shining like the sun. This looks almost like lightning on those sunbeams. This snake might represent Lucifer. Might be a dead snake. And yeah, doesn't show much. Again, that one, we've seen this one before. This is for me a very clear one, that this is a floating object in the sky. You have the clouds here. You have on the top of this is the name Yahuwah. It looks like a floating mothership. I believe it represents Yahushua's Mount Zion and New Jerusalem, on which he floats around, flying around above the earth. Amazing, amazing medal. The same with this one. It looks like the angels helps it to fly, but I think it just represents that it is floating and flying around. And there's the name of Yahuwah there. And yeah, it's above this city again. This is, you can see an angel here, and here you have a glorified being, which might represent Yahushua. He's holding the Israel branch, the tribes. I think this might actually be King David. He's holding a harp, and he's the Israel branch. He's ruling over Israel. He's holding a book and a harp. I think this is a representation of David in his glorified form during the millennial kingdom. Amazing, amazing. Odysseus, this, I think it had a different meaning than it has today. They made it also to have a bad image, but I think it represents something else. Maybe it represents free electricity. And yeah, this angel having the star above his head, I don't know who this angel is. He's got a sword, maybe it's Michael, the angel. Amazing, amazing. This all happened in the millennial kingdom. Now this woman with the floating city here above her head, again here is that floating city I was talking about, and there you can see the name of Yahuwah again. Again, the floating city, this time represented by the capstone, which is Yahushua, and he sees all things happening. His city shines like the light, like the sun. Here again, it's represented a different way with the name Yahuwah on it. And on all these images you can see it's just above the earth, hanging in the sky like a sun. Amazing. Again, it's represented as a capstone and him seeing everything. The cloud covering, shining like the sun. Everything the Bible says, the sun shining like the sun. The shape of it being like a pyramid. And Yahushua flying on it. Yahushua seeing all things. It's a very good representation, actually, I think. This pyramid with the eye. And it makes me think of Lord of the Rings. That they represent the evil one as this, almost like this. Again here it can represent the father's mother and son, the pyramid, the floating city, and looks like judgment on this place. Again the father's mother and son, the pyramid, the capstone, the shape of New Jerusalem. It's a floating city shining like the sun. There's so many. Another one exactly the same as before. The same as before, shining down above the city. As the scripture said in Revelation 21, the people walking under the light of the floating city. It says that in Revelation 21. That's exactly what happened. During the millennial kingdom, it also happened, but of course it will happen in the future too. And here is again showing that this is the floating city. You see the hand of Yahushua here coming out of the clouds by this floating city, showing his presence just above the earth. This is a battle against the saints against a rebellious nation. During Yahushua's millennial kingdom, there was a lot of battles also of rebellious nations that didn't want to submit under Yahushua. And here we can see an angel coming down with a sword, which might be Michael, or might represent Michael. He's got 7 stars here. And yes, it's amazing, eh? Really amazing. Again, Israel, maybe Ephraim, sword, and the crown, Yahushua being a ruler, shining like a sun on his city. Here his hand out of the clouds from the city, the Bible. And as I wrote here, the light already shines. Hebrews 4 verse 14, you can read the verses. You can see might be referring to the light of the New Jerusalem shining on the earth. And a lot of people think the New Jerusalem will be placed on the earth. Maybe it will always hang in the sky above the earth. Who knows? We'll see. Well, maybe we won't, but in the future it might be, even after the renovation of the earth by a new heaven and a new earth, then maybe it will still just hang in the air. Again, the floating city. This is amazing medal. I think this is a representation of a building being made from rock. You can see this like a blob of rock, and there's laser-like objects creating a building. You can see the top of the building's been completed, and it's moving down these lasers, whatever it is, changing the rest of the rock into this building. And it says here, I translated this, I think it says it will be like Mount Zion. Well, saying that the building will look like probably the buildings on Mount Zion, like the New Jerusalem buildings. Amazing. Really amazing. This might be a representation of how they made some of these buildings during the Millennial Kingdom, with some futuristic methods that we don't have a clue about, or have a clue how they're doing it, because I don't know what this represents. It looks like heads, and they're blowing air out of their mouths. Maybe it's like something to do with pneumatics. It's blowing, using air to cut the stone. Is that what it represents? Air cutting the stone? Because I think you can use air to cut things. Maybe is that what it's representing? I don't know. But it's amazing, eh? It shows the building being created. We've seen that one before. This might be one of the saints walking, ministering, and the floating city here above him. Again, floating city. That's it. That's what I have for you today. You can see there's a lot of floating city images on these old medallions of the Millennial Kingdom. Another proof, I believe, that this was a representation of what already happened, which is the Millennial Kingdom. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.